Awesome. Well, today we are going to dive into kind of a good topic. I'm really excited. It is March Madness. We're going to talk all things faith over fear. We're gonna use sports. We're gonna use basketball as to hopefully kind of pique your guys' interest when it comes to this very topic of diving into our faith and not allowing our fear to overtake our thought process and the way in which we conduct ourselves as strong men and as strong dads. So yeah, definitely excited for today's show.
Yeah, it is a really good one. Before we jump into it, guys, there's two things we want to have announcements on. One, there is our Batesville Families Rock class that Rock Solid Families is putting on. We have two more things as this drops. This Thursday, March 12th, is our last and final class of the 4-part series. But this Saturday, March 14th, 8:30 a.m. to 12 noon, it's going to be an intensive class at the Batesville Intermediate School. Okay, if you guys are interested in that, please reach out to us, email us, call our office, and we'd love to be able to talk to you more about that. Those classes are free and they're full of information. And then the last thing we want to is plug in our Strong Dads group Saturday mornings at our St. Leon office, Christina Drive, 7484, 8 a.m. to 9:30. We do, challenges physically, but also spiritually, and we're wrapping up, different things like prayer. We were talking about fasting. How does this look in our daily walk with the Lord? So we encourage you guys to come join them. Batesville Families Rock, Strong Dads. Anything else before they dive in, Kyle?
Nope. I think the show's going to be a good one.
Yeah. Enjoy, guys.
Is your car making a strange noise? Or maybe your golf cart needs a tune-up? Then you need to head to Quality Auto Mart. Quality Auto Mart isn't just about great auto repair and muffler service for your car. They're also your go-to experts for golf cart sales and repair. And we want to give a huge thank you to Quality Auto Mart for being a dedicated sponsor of the Strong Dads podcast. Their support helps us empower dads in our community and beyond. For all your car repair needs, muffler service, or anything golf cart related, trust the team at Quality Auto Mart. Visit them today and tell them the Strong Dads podcast sent you. That's Quality Auto Mart, located on Route 46 outside Batesville, Indiana. Call them at 812-934-2301.
Welcome back to Strong Dads. I'm here with Kyle. Kyle Crofford, how are you?
I'm good, Andy. How are you? I'm good. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad that you could be back on here. I say back because if those of you who have not watched or used to watch previously, Kyle used to co-host with Merle all the time, right?
I know. I think nowadays the kids call it the OG. I think is what we call
OG.
it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's been a little bit of a break. Merle and I, jumped on here and brought hopefully some good content for you guys. So yeah, hoping to kind of bring that back a little bit. So
yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having flexibility to join us as we're recording this. This is the day of our partnership banquet, our third annual Rock Solid Families partnership banquet. And we were supposed to set it recorded later on the day, but the rains came and the storms blew, and we said, all right, let's pivot. And so good. I appreciate your availability.
Absolutely. Yeah, good stuff. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we're going to jump into faith over fear, which remember our month-long theme that just jumped up in volume, didn't it?
It did.
I don't know what happened with that, but our month-long theme at Rock Solid Families is faith over fear, and Strong Dads being a ministry of Rock Solid, we're going to follow that. And this is our first episode, so we're jumping on into what that looks like in everyday life, but how for us as men, for our children, or if we're not married and have kids, how do we lead and help other men walk through faith and not in fear? I say that faith over fear. What's the first thing that comes to your mind, Kyle?
Well, when you called me, the first thing that came to mind when it came to faith over fear is March Madness. For those of you who have tuned in for a while, it's March. We're in March here. And so my first thing that came to mind with that is just the underdogs playing in March Madness and, just trying to have the faith in their teammates and their preparation and preparing and moving forward for the big tournament here. So that was the first thing that came to mind. That's a very worldly perspective on that statement, but that's where my mind automatically went to.
Which is funny. So I taught for 10 years PE, and the guy that I co-taught with is a big Virginia Virginia fan.
Okay.
The latest number one losing to a number 16 in the first round of the NCAA tournament was 3 years ago.
Yep.
Virginia losing to, who was it? I don't remember.
It was Fairleigh Dickinson.
Yes.
There's been 2 16 seeds to date that have beaten the number 1 seed. So.
And who was the other one? Do you know?
UMBC, I think it is. Yeah, UMBC. So it happened in like.
Was that Kentucky?
No, don't you put that evil on. No, don't you say that. No, that happened in 2018, I think. So 2018 and then 2023, I think, were the two years. So
okay. So BBN, Big Blue Nation, big fan.
Huge Kentucky fan. So I don't even know if we're gonna have a tournament appearance this year, but
that's okay. That's all right. You guys have a huge historical background in basketball, and as a wrestler, not the biggest. Like I like basketball, but I didn't follow it intimately that detailed. Yeah. But I knew UK. Yeah. And then the UK fans are like, I mean, it's similar. UK, Duke, UNC. Like those fans are diehards. So I know no dog in the fight on my end.
Right.
I might razz you a little bit that they can't seem to do anything, but no, I'm kidding.
Yeah. But I mean, back to your original question, as far as faith over fear, the thing that kind of comes to my mind, I heard this a little bit more back in like 2020 with COVID, that a way you can control people is induce fear.
Yes.
And I think that is exactly what the idea that the devil was doing to us as men, that he's trying to induce a fear so that we allow that to kind of control our thoughts versus having the faith.
Yes.
So I'm sure we'll get into all things that, but my worldly mindset automatically goes to March Madness. But, if I were to take a step back and actually look at it, as a dad and as the faith component of it, those are kind of the two thoughts that come to mind.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. And we'll just jump right in with that. We're talking everyday fatherhood or, again, we want to speak to those individuals who may not have kids, and so you're not in that realm of fatherhood. But in everyday living, we want to start off with a biblical principle is what you just said. God calls us to lead with courage and not fear. Yeah. And he says, have that faith in me, that you're supposed to walk by faith and not by sight. And when those storms seem insurmountable, when, you go back to the disciples, Jesus is just like snoring, sawing logs here on the boat. And they're like, wake up, we're going to die. And he's like, didn't I just feed like 3,000 people with a miracle right before this? Like right before we got on this boat. And do you think we're going to die in the storm? Like you have little faith. Yeah. But God has given us not a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and of self-control, coming from 2 Timothy. And so, some real life examples of us living out faith over fear. One of the things as a teacher that I've seen on the other end of it is people drop their kids off to school and then they pull away. That's a lot of faith in the teachers, your local public school system of like, are my kids going to be safe? There's tragedy, Columbine shooting and all these other things that like, there is faith that, for everyday people, that is a small component of it. But there's a faith factor in like, I'm dropping my kids off who I love. I hope you guys are taking well and good care of them. And
it's hard because we're essentially putting our faith in men and women, the teachers, right? Yep. And we all know, we all know that human beings fail each other, right? Yes. Yeah. And so it is that idea, obviously having 2 girls of my own, dropping them off every day. And there is that, my wife and I, Jenny, we talk about this, and it's just, and for us to realize that is a reality, right? That's the world we live in, but not accepting that as okay, and understanding that at some point, on top of having our faith in just the teachers and the school district, we have to have a faith that Jesus is going to take care of our girls.
Yes.
And understanding that has to be at the forefront when we're talking about at the dinner table. It's like, what was going on today? Like what happened? And to try and get get a feel for what our girls are going through every day. And part of that is just similar to what you said, just hoping and praying that the teachers that are in the school districts have our girls' best interests at heart, and they're going to do everything they can to protect our girls. And that's not just obviously what you were talking about, the school shooting. That's just in everything. Just having the faith that the teachers are going to take care of our girls and going to teach them the education that we want them to learn. So there's so much that goes into that very topic. So
absolutely. And by the way, I do want to point out his oldest that I know is a phenomenal child. You and your wife have done a wonderful job of raising her.
She's something. She's wicked smart. My oldest Ava is, golly, I don't know where she got it from. It's not from me. My wife is smart, but she's wicked smart. So,
but not even that too. She is very, very strong in her faith, and it's encouraging. Like, I don't know if you've ever helped anybody listening to this, watching. If you ever helped, like middle school is where we would have the gathering that we every Friday morning we would do something. But like I've been encouraged by kids, I'm like, you're 11, 12, 13 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm twice your age, and yet you're moving me. And I'm like, who's the one leading who here right now? As I'm sitting here getting just totally awesome encouraged by people like your daughter, who I think we've had multiple times where kids can come up and share something, and she does. And it's like, this is so cool. This is what the Lord calls and tells us to do. So, man, you and Jenny should be very proud of that.
Yeah, the girls are good. I have a 10 and a 12-year-old. So they're awesome. My youngest Mia, she is a little fireball sometimes. I always joke she's more like me than I care to admit. She's just she's a little stinker sometimes, but no, they're good. They're awesome.
That's cool. Yeah. And so one of the things too I want to bring up, because this is huge when we talk about faith over fear. What fears are dads carrying that they're not opening up to talk about? I see it all the time in session where it's not okay to come in and open up to talk to somebody else, to say they need help, which again, I want to rebuke that. Like, if I don't know how to change the oil in my car, well, I'm going to ask a dude like, hey, Dad, can you help me out with this? Right? Yeah. If I'm carrying something, some weight of magnitude of heaviness that I shouldn't be, what can I do? Ask another man, right? Yeah. Hey, can you help? How do I walk through with this? Like, if you're listening to this, guys, are there things you're carrying that you don't need to? What fear are you holding on to that the enemy is like, now you're in my playground? Yeah. Versus putting it at the foot of the cross and saying, this is not my burden to carry.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when it comes to that, again, my mind just going to the sports analogy, just because I love sports. Yeah. Man, like, there's no 16 seed that's ever going to go into March Madness and win by themselves. And just the team aspect. And I've talked about before on this show, my small group. Every Tuesday night we've been meeting for, 10 plus years. That's and awesome. It's just doing life with these guys. Heck, I mean, if you go way back to the archives of Strong Dads, my entire small group was on. Mm-hmm. And just, man, having a group of dudes around you that can help carry those burdens, right? Because we're not told to do life by ourselves, right? And as men, just like you were talking, there are things that we're carrying that man, share that, bring that up in a small group, bring that up with guys that you have entrusted to do life with, and giving them the ability to speak into that and help you, walk through that. Because again, man, one guy gets in a little bit of foul trouble, like he's going to need a substitute, right? He's going to need someone to come in there and help out and fill in those gaps where you may not be able to. So I think there's so much value in sharing and doing life with other guys and other godly men that not only like are there because they want to lighten their burden, but also want to take on some of yours too, right? And I think there's so much value in that.
Yeah, and it's crazy what you don't, if you don't have this. So last night we jumped on, it was a random, hey, anybody open at 8:30 for a check-in for my men's group and a prayer? And we did like 10 minutes worth, that's all it was. And it was a quick prayer, quick check-in, and one of our men was struggling. He is, working to be a CPA, so he's in busy season right now. Yeah. He is slammed, like 60, 70 hours a week. Oh, wow. And he's a young kid, right? 22, 23, something like that. Like, how are you doing? And he's like, my nose is barely above water. Like, I'm barely here. Yeah. And so we lifted him up. That's all we did was pray for him in that time. And he texted this morning. He's like, I don't know what happened, but guys, the Lord picked me up when I needed it. You guys stood in the gap for me when I didn't think that how am I going to go to work tomorrow? He's like, I was dreading work tomorrow because I was like, another day. And so that, like, when you bring up and you open up to a group of men that you can trust and you do life with, you don't realize how the Lord blesses that. And like, okay, let me encourage you. Let me support you. Let me strengthen you. My burden is easy. My yoke is light. And when you do that, like, it is profound. So, man, if you don't have, a group of men, if you don't have something like that, this is where we're here to say, reach out and ask. You can email me, Andy@rocksolidfamilies.org, call our office, come in on a Saturday morning, Strong Dads. And so we'll talk about that later on, but I wanted to put that out there. Yeah. And the next point, talking about how do we walk in faith over fear is through preparation, right? How often have you and Jenny, like, something come up with your kids and you're like, oh, we didn't prepare for this. And you're like, what do we do? Versus like, oh yeah, we talked about this. We know exactly when they're going to get a phone. We know how much screen time they're going to have. Phones aren't going to go in the room. It's going to go down in our community area, right? Yeah. For you, is there something that stands out for you guys' preparation?
Jenny and I talk about this a lot. Just, the girls will go to bed and we'll just be sitting in bed just talking about stuff. And I have learned that my girls are learning how to be 10 and 12, and Jenny and I are learning how to be parents of a 10 and 12-year-old girl. Mm-hmm. And so while, yes, my wife for sure is very organized and structured, and she wants to have all the ducks in a row before we get to those things, those surprises and those things that do come up, man, I think having the foundation of knowing that communication piece for sure between you and your spouse like that piece is there to make sure that when you go through that, right? Because as we all know, sometimes kids can be a little conniving, right? They can be like, well, daddy said this and mommy said this, right?
Yeah.
And I think having those fundamental foundation pieces put in place to know that, hey, tonight, mommy and I are going to talk about this before we kind of go through, because we have to figure out how to parent a 10 and 12-year-old, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so there are things going to come up, and that's, again, back to the sports analogy, that's kind of throwing those audibles sometimes into the game plan. But you have practiced some of those audibles. You know the steps that you're going to potentially take to make sure that you can come out victorious or come out on the other end, going through the right steps you needed to.
Yeah, absolutely. And from my experience, I coached high school football for 10 years. One of our head coach, Derek Rehage, his favorite saying is, have a plan, work the plan, but plan for the unexpected, because it's going to happen, right? And so, we would be doing practice, and like one of those things, like, all right, hey, your starting middle linebacker just got hurt, get him out.
Yeah.
And so you're in the middle of practice, like, what do you do now?
Yeah.
And that is something that, I struggled with at the beginning of my, like, you plan for all of the pieces to work great because this is the game plan you have. And then you get out there on, Friday night and you're like, well, 3 of those pieces of the game plan aren't even available because of grades, sicknesses, injuries.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, well, now what, right?
Yeah.
And you just can't throw somebody out there because they're not prepared.
Yeah.
So they're not confident. They're literally out there shaking because they're like, what if I screw this up? Everybody's watching me. It's Friday night. The whole town's here. And their confidence is shot.
Yeah.
So that whole thing, they're walking in fear the entire time versus, oh, yeah, we practice if the backup's got to go in. They know the same game plan as the varsity guys, as the starters.
Yeah.
And so, that preparation, talking about from, sports, which is a great reference. I love when kids play sports because they get to practice some of these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then, we go, what the Bible says, train up a child in the way that he should go, from Proverbs 22. And, for us, how are we modeling that to our kids? And, one of the things, like, we're open and honest with our kids. We had somebody come Sunday night and break some news to us that he was like, I know you guys wouldn't agree. And he's like, it's funny, I don't agree, but I'm doing it anyways. And what he's choosing to do, a guy that I've discipled, and I'm like, oh, kind of weird that you're choosing to do something you don't agree with, but, that's your plan. But he was holding on to that, and my oldest daughter was sitting there. She's 9. She's sitting there watching us have a conversation with him, and he's like, I didn't want to come tell you because I thought it would ruin our relationship. Months he'd been sitting on this plan of what he was going to do. Wow. He's like, I think that we wouldn't talk afterwards. And my wife and I got to sit and show our oldest daughter that, like, we may not agree with you. We may not say what you're doing is right, but we're still going to love you through it.
Yeah.
And so she got to see that firsthand of what we want to model for our kids, that, like, I love you and this isn't going to change for you, even if I don't agree and disagree. Because I think about, look what God puts these commandments in place for us. What? Because you have to do what I say because this is my law. Or he says, like, please don't do this because I know it's going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Hey, I love you so much. I don't want you to get burned by playing with fire. And that's why our parents would say, if you play with fire, you'll pee your bed at night, or whatever, right? Come from a firefighter.
Yeah. So here's a question for you, Andy. So in reference to that, and just as my girls are getting older and they're going to be making more decisions, and obviously, Jenny and I will be along for the ride. What do you think, or where do you find the balance? Again, speaking of just fear and the fear of, like, you can't have the bubble around your kids, right? You have to let them grow and experience things. Like, where do you find that balance, or when, someone would come into the office and you're doing a session with them, where do you find that balance of having a finger on the pulse as far as what your kids are doing, but not the helicopter parent, right? Like, because again, I think part of that helicopter is that fear that we're so fearful of the world and what the world's going to do to our kids that sometimes it's like, we have to take that step back and have a little bit of faith in our kids and the training we've done. But how would you, like, coach someone through that exact idea? Yeah,
this is huge. I talk about this quite a bit in session, actually, with parents. There's 2 things I want to talk about. One, what is the goal when we're raising kids, right? The goal is for them to be successful individuals that are autonomous, right? Are independent. They're not living at home in your basement when they're 25 years old, like, hey, get up, it's time to go to work, right? That's not what we want to do.
Right.
And so, okay, that's the goal, right? That's the end goal. And so one of those pieces to being a fully functioning, successful adult is, what happens when failure hits? What happens when things don't go the way you planned? Picking yourself up after you fall down is a key thing that I tell parents. You have to teach this when they're young. And so let them fail now, because failing now, their best friend talked bad about them and it wrecked their week. That is a small failure in the grand scheme of life.
Sure.
In middle school. Now, in their terms, their world just popped, right? So what you say is like, okay, this is the moment. you have fallen, right? Some failure of some sort. You failed a test. You didn't get in the class you wanted to. You name it. It's a failure, and their world popped, and you're like, you're 12 years old. This is not the world in for you.
Right.
But let them fail. Step back, and it's a gradual step back, right? As they get older, you take another step away. With freedom comes responsibility. They have to be responsible enough to take that freedom.
Jocko there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my sister, their youngest kid. They named him Jocko.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right, very cool.
And so, anyways, all that to be said, like I like it when kids fail in middle school, and two in high school, so they learn from you and they turn to you and say, what now? My world is falling apart. Now this is like, because I've given you space to fail and I've not helicoptered it, I know what's going on, keeping your finger on the pulse, knowing, but not stepping in, which is the hardest thing for parents to do. I know this is not easy. Letting my kid fail, you want me to? Yes. Yes, I do. I would encourage you. Let them fail because this failure is small versus they lose a job and then their world deconstructs and they have to move in at home and they don't have any place to go and they can't make a car payment and they can't make a house payment and now they're in bankruptcy and you name all of these things and they can't pick the pieces up from this failure because they've never dealt with it before.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say in session. And it is so hard. I know that. But that is where, like, yes, let them and then show them how they can pick themselves up, how they can move back forward, and they can step that way. And that faith piece and that component is knowing the end goal, right? And the end goal is this. It's not to be perfect. Right? Sure. Our end goal for all have fallen short and come short of the glory of God. Sure. We know that we're not perfect, but his grace and mercies are new every day. And he loves us so much. He sent his son to die for us that here's the end goal. I want to go to heaven and worship him forever. Yeah. And so along the way, I've got to draw near to him when failure does happen. And my faith is the storms all around. As Peter was getting on the boat, trying to walk towards Jesus, when he kept his eyes on Jesus, he was the only other human in the world to walk on water. Yeah. And then as soon as he focused on the wind and the waves, that's when he sunk and Jesus had to save him. Yeah. And so that's what I would say to parents.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And as you're talking and you brought this up, I am a firefighter. I do a lot of training and teaching. And one of the things, to your point that you were talking about, is while we have a new recruit or new guy that's learning a skill, we have to let them fail. Yeah. And it's so hard because you're sitting there like, hey, man, if you're going to force the door, like you should probably put the tool here. But it's like if I just stand over top and watch them the whole time doing all these maneuvers, they don't learn it. And then when they actually get on a structure fire, a real fire, and they have to go force this door, and I may not be right there with them, it's like that door still has to be open, right? And we still got to get inside. Yes. And if we've not gone through those steps, that we use the analogy of the crawl, walk, run method, right? Yes. So I have to teach you how to crawl first, and then I can teach you how to walk, and then heck yeah, man, we're gonna get to that running phase where you're getting after it. Yep. But that was where my mind kind of went, and I love the idea of letting them fail and being okay with failure. Just as you all probably know, like when things are really good, sometimes it's really hard to learn, but when things suck, it's like that's when the learning happens, the most learning happens. And the same could be said about our kids and us as men, right? When you fail, like, man, taking that time to evaluate, realize like you did fail and then own it. And then like, let's move. What are we going to do to get better and make sure it doesn't happen? Yeah, that's absolutely really good. Yeah. So actually I want to pause right here with that. And we're going to take a break and we're going to thank one of our sponsors.
Are you dreaming of a stunning landscape or a refreshed living space? Look no further than Casey's Outdoor Solutions and Gift Shop. Located just outside of Bright, Indiana, Casey specializes in transforming the outside of your home with expert landscaping services. They'll also help you beautify the inside with unique finds from their amazing gift shop. We want to send a huge thank you to Casey's Outdoor Solutions and Gift Shop for being a fantastic sponsor of the Strong Dads podcast. Their support helps us continue to uplift and inspire dads in our community. For all your landscaping dreams and eye-catching home accents, visit Casey's Outdoor Solutions and Gift Shop. That's Casey's, making your home beautiful inside and out.
Hey guys, welcome back. Yeah, we just finished up talking about preparation and really sinking our teeth into let's be as prepared as we can before that. Like you said, Jenny's like, I'm going to do all I can to do all of this X's and O's, right? Yep. But knowing like, okay, when something happens, and it's going to, we live in a fallen, broken world, right? Yeah. Something is going to happen. When that happens, what is the next step? And we just, kind of talked about failure from that point of view. So the next point that we're going to talk about in Faith Over Fear is controlling what you can, yet, and this is that but, like I heard somebody say the second most important word in the Bible is but. Because there's something always really profound afterwards, right?
Yeah.
And so
that's good.
But we trust God with what we can, right? And we can name scripture, trust in the Lord with all your heart and cast your anxieties on him. We're talking Proverbs and Peter, and so that let's talk real word first before we go back to that. Like, what do you mean by control what you can and trust God with what you can't? What would that come to your mind, worldly first?
Yes, worldly mindsets. Ava will come home talking about, she's trying to take a test and someone's talking. And so she's unable to kind of focus and think about what she wants to do. Or some girl at school said something to her, and it kind of it was not that it was the end of the day for her, it ruined her day, but she thought about it. She stewed on it a little bit. For Mia, little things, on the playground, whatever, and whatever, someone cheats, or the teacher said something that Mia didn't like. And those things where it's talking about those things that she can control, and like making sure, like, okay, like you can't change those people, right? Yeah. So, I mean, with the girls, just talking to them about understanding the things that they can control. We just got on the back end of our basketball season. I was coaching my youngest in basketball, and, she's in 5th grade, and, just talking to her about the refs. Right. And we just had our tournament, and there was a lot of parents yelling and screaming about the scorekeeper, right? They didn't stop the clock when they were supposed to.
Yep.
And I feel like as the coach, if I get emotionally into that and I fall into the trap of, why didn't you call a foul there? Or you have to stop the clock, right? Yep. The girls are naturally they're going to fall in line exactly with what the coach does.
Oh, yes.
And because, in the midst of the game, while some kids have a tendency to like look over their parents, right? In the middle of the game, they're looking at the coach. They're looking at the one that's supposed to be the true north, right? In the sense of like, I'm in control of my emotions, right? And I'm not going to get caught up into the refs. And it's also 5th grade basketball, but I'm not going to get caught up in the refs, right? And the scorekeeper can do whatever they do. That's outside of our control. Yep. And I told our girls the basketball season very simply, and when I coached volleyball, it was the same thing. We have 2 rules, only 2 rules when we play, and we're going to have a next ball mentality.
Yes.
So you mess up, it's okay. Move on, right? Yep. We're moving on, and we're giving max effort. Because
Yes.
those are the 2 things on the game you can control. I can't control the outside entities. I can't control everything else going on. Nope. I can control me, the way that I conduct myself, my attitude. And again, my mind's just kind of racing and running here.
Oh, yeah.
A couple weeks ago, I had volleyball camp with Ava, and she wasn't having a good practice. She wasn't at all. Nothing was really going good for her. She got in her car, and she said, "Daddy, I just had a terrible practice." And I looked at her and I said, do you know who else in the gym knew you had a bad practice? She said, "No." I said, "Everybody," because the way you carried yourself. Mm-hmm. You carried yourself in a way that you were not in control of yourself. You allowed the outside entities, the whatever, it wasn't your best day.
Yes.
And you allowed the outside stuff to dictate and control you when you're in control of you. Nobody else is.
Yes.
And man, it's a hard lesson for me to use my own words as advice to myself. Right. But man, as dads, we have to realize that those are lessons that we have to be teaching our girls. This idea, or our kids, not just girls, if you have boys. But man,
only girls.
just teaching our kids the importance of controlling what you can control.
Yes.
And not to say that you can't care about the outside stuff, because I don't think that's a good place to be. But man, control you. And take care of you.
Yes.
And the hope is that if other dads step up and are teaching their kids that same idea and that same principle, man, how much better is it going to be for our kids when they get, as they progress through school and hopefully get jobs and
yes.
Kind of move through life.
Yeah, no, that's really good. That was my favorite as a defensive coordinator. Defense is so different than offense, but my favorite phrase to the kids. And if you are listening to this and I coach you, I hope you would know this too. The most important play is the next play.
Yeah.
And I had, so one of the most like real world example of this, 2019, the fall of 2019, one of our best years defensively, we had set some records. Like we'd only give up average 7 points a game.
Wow.
We set the record in the conference that year. It was a phenomenal. And so we're playing Anderson, who Anderson has been the state last couple of years.
Okay. Yeah.
And that coach, Evan Dreyer, he averages like 40, 50 points a game.
Wow.
Phenomenal on offense. First 3 drives of the game, they drive all the way down the field. I'm talking like from the 20 all the way down into the red zone, all 3 times. And I could just see them, next play. They go from 4th down all 3 times, don't get a single point. We go into overtime that game, 0-0.
Wow.
First play of the game, we're on defense, pick.
Yeah.
Our offense goes and scores, we win 6-0.
Yeah.
That's the only time he's been shut out in his career.
Wow.
And so that I believe of, but I could be wrong. At that time, that was the only time he'd been shut out in his career that I know of. But and it was so cool to see them put into practice. Like you can't control the referees. You can't control what happens. The referees are humans. We used to do it all the time. Like anytime there was a fumble, we would go up to the referee's face and we would point our direction. I would tell the kids, go up to him. He's a human. He gonna mess it up. He might be like, yeah, you're right. It's that way. And then the other guy's got the ball in front of his face, like, do it 100%. Like, don't be a jerk. Don't be disrespectful to it. But yeah, hey, our ball. 100%. And we've gotten a couple of times where we shouldn't have got that call. But and so anyways, all this to be said, yeah, like that right there is so pivotal. And then like, talk about, what God, when he trusting him, I have my administrator license K to 12. And so I was going to be an administrator my last couple of years as teaching. And they had 3 interviews opening up for some entry-level administrations, which would be dean of students, right? So I was like, okay, yeah, 2 were at the elementary levels and 1 was at the high school. And so like me at the junior high, I had kind of been the sweet spot in between. Like I've kind of seen both. I've not been in both realms, but as a high school coach for 9 years and working in this realm, I know what they need to be ready for when they come to middle school. It's like, yeah. And so I prepared my butt off. And from everybody I did mock interviews with and questions and stuff, they were like, wow, you seem really prepared, confident, good. And all of the feedback I got was great. And I got not a single one of those jobs. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what does this mean, Lord? Like this I felt like was in the works for a long time. And I did not see that he had other doors opened up for me. Like right now, being at Rock Solid Families, I probably wouldn't be here if I was, you know what I mean? Like to take away that job, if I was an administrator and where the direction that was heading to me, God said, no, that's not your path. I've got something better for you. And I had to trust in his plan. Like, okay, I controlled what I could. I prepared, I did my best. And the answer was no. Okay, well then now the trust piece comes in. Like, all right, Lord, you must have something else. You have to. Why else did you close this door?
Yeah.
And that's where the faith and the trust come into play.
Yeah.
And again, you talk about showing, like, even if you don't have children, yes, I showed my children what that looks like. I didn't hang down. I went to work the next day. Yeah. It was a Thursday, was one of my interviews. I went to work on a Friday, and I remember like getting good news, or no, it was, I got the report that I didn't get any of those jobs on a Thursday, and I went to school on Friday. Yep. And I remember talking to one of the administrators that helped me, and he said, you being here the next day is huge. Like, I don't know if anybody else knows this besides the people who know you didn't get the job. Right. You still showing up and saying like, okay, I have a job to do. It's okay. And for you, other men sharing that, like, hey guys, I didn't get the job I wanted, but I still went to school the next day. Like showing other men, like, I have trust, Lord, I know that you have something in play, and even if I can't see it, and modeling the next point.
You just shot my heart. I just found out a couple of days ago I did not get a position at work. And
oh, really?
Yeah. So I was going for a lieutenant's position. Okay. I've been in the fire service for 18 years here on March 5th. Is that today?
That's today. Yeah.
18 years I've been in the fire service. And I've prepared my entire career. I've shared a lot on this very show, and went for a lieutenant's position. And I was in the top 5, and they were hiring one right away. I got the phone call on last week that I didn't get it, and man, very disappointed. The next day I had to go to work, and I went into my chief's office, and it wasn't to complain. It was to, hey, how can I do better?
Yes.
Tell me, the way, kind of the path to get better, to make those slight improvements. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of just having, the hopeful, because there's a lot of minds, there's a lot of things going on in my mind. There's a lot of frustrations that come along with it. But again, I control me, and if I go to work and I start cussing guys out because I'm pissed off I didn't get it, like what does that accomplish? It just makes me look bad at the end, right?
Exactly, and that's our next point, is modeling that calm in the chaos. And you're hurting right now, and the desires of where you were wanting to go is not what you had hoped for. So how can you model that to other men or to our kids? And you're doing a phenomenal job from this outside point of view looking in,
Well, and it was hard because the girls, my girls knew that was a very meaningful position that I really wanted. I'd expressed that I talked to them about it. They saw my preparation, to get ready for the interviews and the assessment center and the testing.
Yep.
I had 90 days to study. I've shared it on this show before. I don't really exactly like school, and school's not. I don't jive well at school, but I put a lot of time and effort to study, and I did really well on the test. And so then having a conversation again from school, and they knew I was going to find out during the day, and dinner time was like, yeah, Daddy didn't get the position, and the gentleman that did get it, golly, kudos to him. He's a phenomenal guy, and that was how our conversation went. That while Daddy didn't get it, the guy who did, the department feels was a better fit for it. And not only is he just a good fireman, he's a good human being. He's a really good dad, and like talking about the importance of that and that personality trait that he has, and like sure. Daddy's frustrated for sure. I'm frustrated that I didn't get it, right?
Yes.
And it's not that I have to be disgruntled or mad that the other gentleman did, or the department picked somebody else. So yeah, I mean I'm learning to try and model that, because sure, I think we all have, if you're married and you're married to a female, that sometimes emotions can run high, and it's like. Yes. And if we don't, as men, learn to step up and say, like, okay, I have to put my emotion in check, because we all know what happens when your emotions get the best of you.
Yep.
You say some stupid things, right? And you're not able to really compose and conduct yourself in a way that is biblical, in a way that God would want that for us.
Yes, that's good. And I do want to point out too, emotions aren't bad.
Correct.
Even in
Absolutely.
the Bible says, in your anger, do not sin. It doesn't say that anger is the sin.
Yep, good point.
It is not. Like, we are allowed to have human emotions. We're going to go through the spectrum of grief and anger and frustrations and all of these different emotions we have. It's how are we regulating?
Yeah,
and
good point.
And then you see, that's what we're trying to teach our kids. If you got young kids, you know what a meltdown looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember from our 9-year-old, we got a 3.5-year-old, 9-year-old daughter, 7-year-old son, 3.5-year-old daughter. Right. And I was telling our 3-year-old daughter no, and our 9, just tell her yes, Dad. I don't want to deal with her crying. I'm like, I don't either, but I'm not doing that. And and it was funny that she saw it. She knows. She's like, I don't want to deal with her when she starts crying, because she's just getting out of that. I don't think 2s are bad.
Yeah.
Threes
were bad.
3s have been bad for all of our children.
Okay.
And so it was funny how she said that, but we are teaching our kids, and I remember at a young age, I did not. I don't know. I've shared the story on here before with Zach Strobel, but my son whacked me in the face with one of these like little toys, and I was like furious. I took it, broke it over my knee, threw it on the ground. Play with that now as I walked away. And I just remember my dad used to do stuff like that, and I saw, and I was like, oh, I don't want to be the same modeling effect. And because no disrespect to my dad, like also. When we're parents, what do we want? We want our kids to be better than us, right?
Yeah.
And so that staggering effect, if they're better, what are we reproducing? And so, we've got to, how do we regulate when the emotions do come, so that when we connect to our kids or other men, and I tell some people, like, if you've never practiced this before, working out is such a good regulator of our emotions. Right, our body in fight or flight dumps in adrenaline and cortisol for a good reason, right? And people have you've seen people trapped in our car, they lift it. Like, how did you do that?
Yeah.
I get this dump from my nervous system. And like, here you go. Now you can go do crazy things. And at the time, our body thinks we're still cavemen. Mm-hmm. I need you to dump all this emotion to fight a bear, right? To outrun a cheetah, or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
But for us, if we are in that state and we get that dump of all this adrenaline and cortisol, and if we don't do something with it on a regular basis, exercise helps to minimize that dump of your nervous system and how to control it and dissipate the adrenaline and cortisol much faster to, absorb it, to get rid of it. And you don't have this effect where I'm yelling, raging out, or what's the crash out? I'm crashing out right now, bro. Whatever the kids say.
That's usually after I get a lot of Red Bull, and then the crash happens after the Red Bull.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that modeling effect.
Yeah.
Be still and know that I am God is hard to do, and a lot of times we only see it because other people have modeled it for us, right? We're going to our next point of legacy thinking. Are we, if talking to men out there, listen to this, if you aren't having somebody model for you what it looks like for life, real life, like your men's group, one, either you need a model or you need to be modeling it to somebody else, in my opinion. So like if we've got some older gentlemen or wives, if you listen to this and your husband is an awesome model of these things, as he's sharing that with other young men, I know I'm one of those, like I need men, older men in my life who are in stages that I have not been to yet to help model to me what it looks like when, I've got one that I meet with every Friday morning. His daughter's married. And so he's talking about they just got home on vacation and they went with their daughter and her husband. And he's like, this was a totally different realm for us. And I was like, well, how'd you handle if they didn't go out to dinner with you guys? How'd you handle if they, because you had these expectations. I'm paying for you to go on vacation with me.
Yeah.
You're going to, he's like, we didn't have that mindset. And I was like, that's really good. And not to be offended if they don't take your, hey, you want to go out to dinner with us? I'd love to really have some dinner and some time with you. No, we're going to do our own thing.
Yeah.
Are you going to be offended with that? I was like, thank you for showing me that. So men out there, we've got to be modeling it, or be modeled too. Like I love seeing older men at different seasons of life pouring into me.
Yep. At work, we call this a senior man. So in the firehouse and the fire service, this is the guy who's seen some things, right? He's been around a little bit. He's learned some hard lessons. He's been through some trainings. He's been to some fires where things didn't go great. And man, those are the guys you want to cling to. I remember when I got hired at the Dayton Fire Department, man, I found Richie Olszewski. He was the man, right? He was at my firehouse. He was legit, right? And I remember my lieutenant said, whatever Richie does, you do. Go follow him, right? And it's so good to have someone like that in your life, in your workplace. Man, because you need, just like you're saying, sometimes this world kind of sucks sometimes, right? And it's hard, and it's like to have dudes that are pouring into you, have guys that are willing and wanting to fill that role for you, to be like, hey, I've been here before. I want you to figure it out, but I'm going to help you figure it out, right? I'm gonna see you through when you're on that working fire and things aren't going good. Man, I'm there with you. So that way, when you turn around and it's really lonely inside there and it's really hot, it's like, oh, there's Richie. He's right there with me, right? Yeah. And having that person in your life, because man, the hope is as strong dads, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be that for our kids, because our kids, when they're in the fire, man, they're going to turn around. They need to know Daddy's right there with me.
Absolutely.
Right? He's right there with me. He's not going to necessarily point me in the exact direction, but he's going to give me my options, and he's going to be there and loving on me as I try and make those decisions.
Yes. 100%. That's really good. And I'm thinking about too, like sports references. We've been talking about them this entire show. The best high school football teams have laden with juniors and seniors. They're not these like, oh, this is a super stud freshman starting on varsity. Like those are good, but you've got to have your core. And the best year, go back to that 2019, that defense I was talking about. We had 9 of 11 on defense seniors.
Yeah.
That's when you've got a really good team, when you've got a bunch of juniors and seniors leading the way. Why? Because like you said, they've been there before. They know what to do. They know that this is what we're doing. This is the legacy that I want to continue. And I talk about this lately, like legacy in motion, not legacy something I'm leaving behind. I want this to continue even as I'm gone and I go on to the next season or the next stage of life, right? And our kids are a perfect example of it. As they are moving on, are we preparing them as they go to their next stage? High school coming up soon for Ava. Is she ready to take on friendships, school getting harder, balancing sports along with that? Like, have you and Jenny helped to prepare her to get to that? Or if she does fail, she knows how to pick herself up.
Yeah.
What do we do now? What do we do next?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. And man, the idea of legacy thinking, sometimes in my mind, I think that's so far off, right? Yeah. That the legacy that I'm hoping to leave my girls, that I'll get to see the fruits of the labor so far down. And it's like, man, one of my all-time favorite Bible verses is 2 Corinthians 5:17. It says, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he's a new creation. The old has come, and the 2 Corinthians 5:17. The old is come, and the new is here." And it's and I used to have a blog that I used to do, and it was like, I'm a new creation, ... in progress. And man, the ... is where the legacy is found. It's like that's where you're establishing that legacy right now, the here and the now. So for me, it's I'm also talking to myself as much like, man, the legacy isn't like, yes, I'm trying to prepare my girls for 20 years down the road, the type of person that I want them to be. But the ... like today is where you instill those mindsets and you instill that faith over fear to make sure like my girls aren't going to be overcome by the fear of this world. Like they're in it right now. And I just think the idea of legacy, it's the here and the now.
Yes, that is really good. And I remember too, like some of the things like my dad, he had said before I went to college was like, don't make somebody else clean up your mess.
Yeah.
Right. That was one of those things. And then too, like Matthew 6:21, for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So where are you putting your heart in? Like these two things, like he wasn't gone yet. Right. And I was entering a new season, but he was making sure, like, do you remember some of the things we talked about as you grow and develop to get ready to build the legacy you're going to have with your family and kids and the men that you come in contact with and that you pour into. And so, like these legacy thinking is for the here and now, because they are going to watch you more than we know. Our kids do, at least. More than we know. Like you remember that? Like they may not remember the conversations, but they see so much in how we handle ourselves that is important. We have that mindset, the here and now. That is really good.
I got called out by Ava the other day. Again, just speaking of volleyball, I try to be very mindful. Like I'm there, I'm engaged to try and watch her. And so I'd watch her do a drill, and then she would go over, and get in line. And then I get a text message, right? So then I pull my phone up, and we got in the car. She's like, Daddy, you were on your phone. And I was like, baby girl, I promise I watch you. But it's like, she observed that. She saw that. And it's like, all right, you're right, sweetie. I got to do better, right? Yeah. And it's like, I felt like I was so engaged and so in tune to what she was doing and like encouraging her and talking to her through it. And then it's like the 3 times she looks over, so the times I'm looking at my phone, I'm like, dang it, right?
And it's so cool that your posture of that, because some people would have been like, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm right, you're wrong. I'm the adult, you're the kid. Knock it off. I was not on my phone. That is one way you could have handled that situation. Or to the, thank you. I'm sorry that you think that. That wasn't my goal. I was trying to do it in between but I appreciate that you told me that so that I can work on that next time. Right? That is such, again, talking about how are we modeling it to our kids, and that is a huge way of leading in that way, Kyle. I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, we have to take accountability, right?
Yes.
We have to. I mean, because again, we're talking about everybody else failing us and the things we control. Like we're gonna fail. Like I do a lot. I fail, and it's like, man, it's just like, all right. I gotta get better, right?
Yes.
There's only one way to go, and it's not to throw my hands up or to feel, put a pity party for myself and feel sorry for myself. It's like, okay, you're right, let's go.
Yep, absolutely. So let's wrap all this up and the things that we've talked about, right? As we go in closing, our goal is for you guys to have something you can take away, something easy that you can example. And so I think first and foremost, when we talk about leading in fear or in faith, you got to know where you're at. Right. And if you don't know that, like ask your wife, ask your friends, ask your kids, like, how do they feel that you're leading? Like, I think I'm doing a pretty good job. And then you get your 12-year-old like, yeah, Dad, you're really not. You better take yourself off your high horse pretty good.
Yeah.
And that humble, like, okay, let's be real. Let's be honest. Let's get to the point. Am I leading in fear or am I leading in faith? And that will then set your starting point. Like, okay, I'm not doing as well as I thought. That's okay. That means I got something to work on. So our practice is so good for kids, for sports.
Yeah.
Let's practice, because we ain't getting any better if we just play games.
Right.
So, and that's all they want to do, though. They don't want to practice.
Yeah.
We talk about practice.
Yep.
Practice.
Well, and that's also, I mean, having scrimmages in your practice, right?
Yes.
And it's like, all right, so part of practicing this mindset of continually, because it's really ironic and funny, because I feel like every time you pray for something and like you're wanting God to lead us, He's like, all right, I mean, you asked for it, here you go, right? And it's like, so if we're praying for these opportunities to have that idea and have that mindset of having that faith, and it's like, you're going to get those opportunities.
Yes.
And it's like, we shouldn't be surprised when God presents them, right? Because the saying always in the fire service is like, there's no garbage man that's surprised when he pulls up and he sees a trash bin, right?
Yeah.
As a fireman, you shouldn't be surprised when you see fire, because that's what we're supposed to do, right? Yeah. As dads, we shouldn't be surprised when adversity comes our way, or when our kids have stuff going on. Like, we shouldn't be surprised in that. We need to prepare ourselves, go through the practices, put yourselves in strenuous situations, whether it be a scrimmage, and like working through that with your kids and your family, I think is so valuable.
Yes, absolutely. And I think too, the next step from that, like, all right, once I know where I'm at, and if you would say, like, ask your wife, ask your men, ask your kids, and like, no, you're doing a really good job. Okay, am I showing this to other people? Am I around enough people to show? And like, if I am doing a good job, and kudos, there are plenty of men I know who are modeling wonderful faith and not fear. Are you around other people to show them this is what it's like, right? Because some people, we get in these bubbles, right? I go to work, I work at home, it's virtual, I see my kids. Yeah, I'm not really around a bunch of other men, right? The Strong Dads community is a vital, important piece to what we're doing. And so I want to be held to that. Like I would encourage men, if you aren't around them, to get yourself involved, to help model in a good way what that looks like. But once you know where you're at, now the next step is, what can I do? What is one way that I can grow before next time? Is it handling the emotions well when things don't go my way?
Yeah.
Like, hey, you do a really good job, except when things blow up.
Yeah.
And if somebody tells you that in the truthful, honest way, thank them first and then say, like, okay, what can I do next?
Yeah.
Right? Or if it's the, yeah, Dad, you are kind of really afraid of things going wrong, so you react very fearfully and you're super protective. You don't let me go. Give me some space. Like, wow. Yeah, you're right. I do think fearfully and I don't let you have enough space. Thank you for that. How can I take a step back from my kids to let them have some freedom?
Yeah. And I think what you just said, talking to our kids about it, man, how valuable is that to bring them along for the journey, right? As you're trying to figure out how to be a strong dad and a man, because we all are, right? Bring them along for it. Like, hey, at the dinner table, daddy failed at this. Like, I didn't do a great job last week. Like, I'm going to do better. I'm going to make the effort to do better next week, right? And next time that this comes up, next time, Ava, you see me on my phone, I'm going to do better.
Yes.
I'm going to try and be more intentional with my time that I have with you.
Yeah, that's good, because they'll be straight up blunt with you in a good way. Like, you didn't sugarcoat that at all, did you? So, well, awesome. Kyle, thank you again for coming on here.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, I hope you guys got at least one nugget of information you guys can apply. The goal here is progress, right? Not perfection. None of us are going to be perfect. But are we progressing? Are we growing closer in our walk with our Lord, leading our children in a better way, leading other men in a better way? That way, this world is hopefully, getting better. So we'd like to, thank again our sponsors, Quality Auto Mart, Casey's Outdoor Solutions, and the Hebron Grill. And we want to thank you guys, right? You guys listening and watching. You're the reason why we do this. We're able to go and create these podcasts because people come to us and say, like, wow, I really like what you said there. Or, that was really good. Great job. And so we thank you guys for sharing this, for liking it. And then if you guys have any questions, please reach out to us. You can go to our website, rocksolidfamilies.org. And again, Strong Dads is a ministry of Rock Solid. Email andy@rocksolidfamilies.org, or you can call the office. The office number is 812-576-7625. And we would be remiss if we didn't plug in Strong Dads on Saturday morning.
There you
go. Saturday morning at 8 to 9:30 at our St. Leon office, guys. 45-minute workout, 45-minute Bible study. If you aren't involved in some sort of a group for other men, we encourage you, please come. Any one of those times, any Saturday that we're having it, come on in available. Anything else you want to add before you close it out?
Man, appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for having me back.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, go out there and be a strong dad.
Are you hungry for some fantastic food and a great atmosphere? Then head over to the Hebron Grill. Distinctively Southern and soulfully unique, the Hebron Grill has something for everyone. It's the perfect spot for family dinners, a quick lunch, or catching up with friends. We want to send a huge thank you to the Hebron Grill for being a sponsor of the Strong Dads podcast and for their incredible support in helping us empower dads everywhere. So the next time you're looking for a great meal, remember the Hebron Grill. Find them online or stop by today. That's the Hebron Grill. Great food and great community.